Hi, everyone. Amanda Robinson, the Digital Gal, here to talk about the iOS changes with Apple when they're releasing their privacy updates. That's probably going to impact all of us as consumers and as advertisers. And joining me today, I have Paco, and I'm going to let Paco introduce himself because I can't even begin to do his credentials justice.
Thanks. That's a great intro. Thanks for having me. Um, my name is Paco. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm a Facebook marketer and I build software. I've built a Facebook interest tool called InterestExplorer, and I'm also working on a comment moderation tool for Instagram and Facebook, which is called Sentimentally. Then there's a whole range of different stuff. But for the past few years, I've been focusing on building software that helps Facebook marketers, Facebook advertisers to improve their returns.
And
That's basically
I'm one of those marketers who has greatly benefited from the products that you've produced. I've used them with my Facebook ads targeting, my strategies, and even with what I'm teaching in my Facebook ads 4-week boot camp. So the products that you have produced have honestly greatly changed my research tools and the trajectory of how I do my ads targeting. So I'm a super fan. I love everything that you put out, and I've been watching all of your blogs for a couple of years now, and everything that you put out is incredibly intelligently laid out from a technical perspective and from an ease of understanding what the heck is going on. So that's why I am so excited that you said yes to jumping on video with me to geek out over the changes, the pending changes with iOS 14. So I'm wondering, first we should probably explain what that change or what changes are actually coming. So starting out from the very bare bones basic, Apple is going to be essentially prompting users when they're using an Apple mobile device, so an iPhone, iPad. They're going to be prompting you when you're using apps to ask you whether you want to allow that third-party tracking of that app. And you can opt in or you can opt out. So we're guessing that most users are most likely going to opt out of tracking because most consumers, your knee-jerk reaction is, I don't want to be tracked. I don't want to be served ads. However, it's not going to reduce the volume of ads that you're being served. It's going to reduce the more of the personalization of the ads that you're going to be served. So I
exactly.
wanted to get your take on that initial change in itself.
Yeah. So it's kind of an intrusive notification, at least. It's not live yet, of course, but the thing that they presented and the way that they're going to ask for permission, explicit permission from users, is kind of intense. And I guess I would say no to it. I made a note. I think they will say, do you allow Facebook to track your activity across other companies, apps, and websites? That's like so vague and so broad that people will probably say, no, I don't want that. And that's where the sort of problem exists for Facebook advertisers because um, let me start from the beginning. So how do you recognize people online? And there's like two different worlds. You have mobile apps and you have the web. And the web can be on a mobile device, but it can also be on Safari on your MacBook, for example. And what has been going on for quite some time now, silently, is browsers becoming more strict when it comes to privacy. So users value privacy. As an internet user, I also value privacy, but as an advertiser, I want to personalize my ads. And even as a user, I want to see relevant ads. So it's a balance. But now browsers are becoming overly concerned with privacy. So all their initiatives are based on limiting the ability that advertisers or third parties have for tracking them. And we've seen a lot of these things. I mean, in the US, it's different than in Europe. But in Europe, we already had all these cookie notices and all this kind of weird stuff. But now it becomes more strict. And for the past, I would say 6 months, Safari on Mac has already been deleting cookies. And one of the mechanisms to track users and to recognize users as returning users is cookies, at least on the web. So there, silently, it has already been a huge problem. And if you are a Google Analytics expert, or if you are looking at your statistics a lot, then you might have already seen your direct traffic increasing, your new visitors increasing, and especially when you look at the zoomed in Safari metrics. And that has been because Facebook, or sorry, not Facebook, but because the Safari browser has been deleting cookies after 7 days. That's like the new reality. Then now they're also moving that towards the app platform. So now Apple will enforce Facebook app developers or app developers to ask for this permission. And every app in the App Store has to do that. Otherwise, they will be kicked out of the App Store. And that's a big problem because up until now, it was a web problem and most people use Facebook in the app. But now this whole problem is also migrating to the app, and the same restrictions that were already happening on desktop are now also taking to the mobile device where the majority of Facebook traffic is coming.
And now a lot of app developers rely on advertising revenue to fund their continuation of developing apps and to bring us other free apps and bring us app experiences. So the word on the street is that by people opting out and advertisers having less control over where their ads are being shown, the effectiveness of ads, that it could reduce the ad revenue that app developers are receiving and could in turn actually drive up costs of apps or bring up new costs for apps that we have previously had for free.
That could be that's of course still speculation, but I'm sure that I'm still guessing that Apple will eventually come out with some kind of advertising product themselves. So like it makes total sense that if they are planning to move into the advertising business, that they're of course trying to limit Facebook's abilities and also other ad platforms' abilities. So if they are going to launch a certain product for app developers to have other ways of monetization, then this all falls into place and then it all makes sense. Otherwise, it's just like Apple being sort of the best kid in the class and then like Facebook being the naughty kid. And that's, of course, marketing.
And that's one of the things I've heard is that Apple, I'm trying to find the term that has been being used, that Apple is not in alignment. They're operating not in alignment with other apps and other businesses. So they really are just making their own choices right now, regardless of how that's going to ripple affect the industry. But to your point, it's probably a posture and a move to bring other things that are coming in the future.
Yeah, I don't. I even expect like lawsuits around this topic because there's also, of course, laws about fair competition and level playing field and like monopolies, and this starts to smell like that. Yes. So it wouldn't surprise me, but still, it's like there's a lot of speculation, and I feel that Facebook has been trying to keep its secret, or at least to not make users aware of what's happening, because this is not new. Like this whole iOS14 thing is, of course, like has been in the media and people have been discussing it on Facebook and everyone thinks that the world's coming to an end. But this has been like going on for, I would say, years even. Like the first WebKit releases, WebKit's like the engine behind Safari. The first WebKit releases that included some kind of tracking prevention were like from 2 or 3 years ago. And then slowly and gradually they started to like make it more strict, and also like in the latest Safari versions, if you have those ones on your Mac, then you even see like this little shield in the address bar that says, "Hey, we've prevented this many sites from tracking you." So they're even making it visible to end users that they are like privacy sensitive, and that's like sort of the message that they want to convey. But now in apps, like the big problem is that a lot of the true value of Facebook and of Facebook ads lies outside of their platform. So they can like create lookalike audience from video views or from people that like your page, and that's all fine, and they can still do that. It's within their own ecosystem. But then everything that happens outside of it, so all your custom conversions, your leads, your audiences that visited certain pages on your website, that's all happening outside of their platform and now outside of their app as well. So as soon as this new change is being released, then they completely lose sight of what's happening, and therefore they also completely lose sight of the returns on their ad clicks.
Exactly.
And so that's why they're so aggressive.
And that's why we're on paper, when we're looking at our analytics, we're going to see our ad costs increase. We're going to see our conversions go down. but it doesn't necessarily mean that those conversions aren't still taking place and that people aren't actually arriving at the site. However, with your audiences, if you are relying on those custom website audiences to create a higher value audience to serve those ads to get a better response out of, those audience sizes will slowly start to decline. And then if you're serving ads to that audience, your ads may not perform as well because you don't have the full suite of audience to serve it to. So ad performance might go down. Therefore, conversions might go down because you're not getting your ads in front of the right people necessarily. So it's just a cascade effect. And it sounds to me like it's going to be a little bit of a slow burn before we really start to see the effects of it once this comes into place. Now, I did want to ask you again, you were mentioning earlier on how users are recognized and how that's impacting these changes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's like two separate worlds. So on the web, in just web browsers on either your mobile device or on your computer, the moment that you click on an ad from Facebook, then in this redirect to your landing page, a cookie is set on your device. And this cookie is tied to your browser and to your device. So it's really specific. When you revisit Facebook or revisit in another device and make a purchase on another computer, then it could be that Facebook can't link it. But because you're logged in, they're kind of doing an okay job with that. But the reality now is that within the latest Safari versions, cookies are deleted. Like after 7 days, without user action or without a revisit of the same web page, then this cookie is deleted, which means that the moment that you return to this website and make a purchase, then you're a new visitor when it comes to Facebook. You're just a new cookie because the previous one was deleted. And that impacts your conversion attribution because most businesses have a sales cycle that takes more than 7 days. So when you don't visit the website for 7 days and cookies deleted and you're new, but your whole consideration phase has been deleted basically, then Facebook can't assign this transaction to an ad click that happened before. Facebook advertisers probably know that within Ads Manager, you could already switch between having a 28-day click view or a 28-day click and 1-day view or a 7-day click. This will all be like reduced to 7-day click because there's no world outside of that anymore.
Exactly.
That's a problem. Facebook will try to prep up this ROAS that you see in Ads Manager by just they say they're going to say that it's AI and it's all kind of smart stuff, but they're probably going to guess based on like your old metrics. They're going to guess how many conversions you would probably have had in the old situation.
Well, and that's where I've heard terms introduced now. So Apple has their PCM, their private click management version of how they're tracking clicks. And then Facebook is now adapting with the new AEM, which is the aggregated event management.
Yeah,
exactly. That kind of leads us into so how this is impacting the changes to how Facebook is actually tracking events. So the word on the street is Facebook is now going to be reducing the number of events that are actively being tracked within your ads from infinite down to 8. Yeah. And we are going to, as advertisers, we're going to have to choose which 8 events, standard events or custom conversions that we want to track that are valuable to us. Ones that fall outside of those 8 that we choose are not going to be able to be used in ads, in our ad sets for conversions. Yeah. And if you make changes to your top 8, Facebook is going to have a 3-day window, 3-day cool-off period of time before you can actually start using the new events that you've now designated as your new top 8. And on top of that, we have to rank the top 8 from number 1 to 8 of importance in order of importance, so that Facebook will. And here's where I would love to get some clarification from you if you're familiar with this part, is that if you opt out of tracking, Facebook can still get reporting on one event. That's what I've been hearing. Versus if you opt into tracking, Facebook can track all 8 of those events of your experience. So that's why the order of priority has to take place. If you opt out, Facebook can still report on one event, and Facebook needs to know of that 8, which one is the highest priority. So if somebody makes it all the way to adding an item to a cart and then they abandon, that we can still see an item was added to cart versus, only reporting on they viewed content and that was it. And then they walked away. Have you heard anything about that part?
To be honest, I haven't. My assumption is that when you disallow tracking, that nothing can be tracked. That's Apple uses this app tracking transparency framework, and it's just in or out basically. That's at least from a technical perspective my understanding. I can imagine that they would like people to prioritize their conversions, but I don't think it's related to having. But I don't think that the first would be still tracked, even though you don't allow tracking. But like the workarounds, or for technical people, Facebook is going to push this conversions API much harder than they're doing now, because like you can track conversions through JavaScript, so through something that runs in your browser, or you can track conversions by sending them straight from your server as soon as they happen, and then sending them into to the Facebook platform through the backend. And I feel that service, so the conversions API, it has already been there for quite some time, but they've made a lot of improvements to it. And e-commerce systems like Shopify, for example, they will build great integrations with this conversions API, so that as soon as an order comes in, you can still send it. And that doesn't rely on Apple or iOS or anything at all. But then when you have a purchase conversion, then you always have a name or an email or a phone number or an address. So something that even in worst case scenario, Facebook can often match to a person or a profile that has clicked on your ads. But there's going to be a lot of guesswork involved, and they can create some kind of a fancy name for it, but it's basically guessing and trying to model what the impact of Facebook on your total sales cycle has been. But that, yeah, I mean, every platform is already battling for the attribution. And when you have a sales cycle of 7 days, and you have a Google ad click and a Facebook ad click and whatever kind of platform ad click, then within these ad platforms, they will all attribute this one sale to their platform. And that is going to increase, because with this modeling, they can even, like, it's completely artificial. So they can create a number that suits their business model. And as soon as advertisers see their returns or their ROAS decrease, then the conclusion is, for at least most of the advertisers, Facebook doesn't work as good as it did before. Yeah. So I'm going to quit Facebook and I'm going to move my budget to some other platform. So there's like for them, this is like a real threat. And that's also like, they try to keep it silent for some time. And then maybe advertisers have noticed that when you click on an ad on Facebook, you have this weird FBCL ID, Facebook click ID, appended to the back of the URL. And that's one of the workarounds that they've launched. Then within your pixel settings, you have a checkbox where you can say, I want to have advanced custom matching and stuff. That's also a workaround. So there's like a whole bunch of workarounds that were presented to advertisers as improvements, but that were already in place, because they know that this has been happening for some time. And now, like this App Store enforcement is so intrusive that there's no workaround, and Apple controls the platform. So there's no way for them to find some other kind of solution that still has the same tracking. But now, yeah, this is a big problem, and that's why they take this so seriously. I even saw newspaper ads. Like, it's completely an online platform that publishes newspaper ads, and it's
well, I know that and they really are battling this out quite publicly. And Facebook has different resources that they've put together with voices of actual small business owners who are standing up to say, this is going to hurt the small business owners more than it's going to hurt the big business. Small business, I mean, gone are the days of being able to put money into Facebook like a slot machine and getting big returns out of it. Facebook ads do take work, and it's all in your targeting. It's all in your in the actual quality of the content that you have, that you're putting together. And you do have to put some ad spend behind it. You can't just put $50 here and $50 there and hope for the best. You need an actual advertising budget put behind it to make it work. So for small business owners, those are big commitments. Not only are they big time commitments, big financial commitments, and most of the time they get to the point where they get so frustrated with trying to understand it, they go and hire or outsource this to somebody else. So now when this is going to be impacting the deliverability of their ads, the quality of their audiences, the volume of conversions, not immediately up front. They're still going to be getting conversions, some that we may not be able to track, but over time it can reduce the number of conversions because of the quality of the audiences that we're relying on to serve the ads to. So it really is going to impact the pocketbooks of small business owners who are using very conservative budgets right now to try and do the best they can. Now, with that said, if you have a lot of budget, you can test ads and test different ad sets, test different audiences, test different interests. You have a lot of flexibility to test things with a high enough volume that you're going to know within several hours if it's working or if it's not. Small business owners, they have to spend a fraction of that, and it takes so much longer. It can take a couple months of spending, testing, comparing data, comparing how did that audience work compared to this other audience over here, how did this ad work compared to that one, creative, etc. So the time of testing to get to the same volumes of information to make statistical significance and have decision making that you can make out of that, it's a longer window, and we're seeing everything being shortened within that window, and even reporting is going to be delayed. So when it comes to the accuracy of what you're looking at, I have a feeling the system's going to go a little haywire for a little while. Small business owners are going to be at the absolute end of the hook here when it comes to how much this is going to impact people. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that, and I also think that a lot of businesses don't really have an offer or like an end conversion that can be fit within these 7 days. So every business should think about the ultimate goal of running ads is, of course, like attracting clients or selling a product. But what I see too many advertisers do is like try to go straight for a sale, or try to sell a super expensive product straight from the timeline. And I feel it's moving towards like conversions higher up in the funnel, like lead generation, for example. It can be a perfect platform for lead generation, and lead generation can happen within a same day, or preferably happens within the same click. So then you don't have this problem. But when your goal is to have like this whole nifty retargeting sequence with all kinds of behaviors and different stories and sequencing, then
it's not going to be as useful.
You have no idea what people have seen or have not seen. And the same goes for lookalikes. Yeah.
And that was the other thing that's been mentioned, is that up until now, we've had some pretty great tools to be able to exclude previous purchasers from your advertising audiences. Well, now when we lose visibility to that tracking, previous purchasers are now going to get caught up in your net, in your advertising for people, even if you're trying to exclude previous purchasers. So it really is going to have a ripple effect on our ads. But to your point, I think, Facebook has already been putting in the work and the effort to give us alternate tracking means. And I know they are working around the clock right now to accommodate these changes and to lessen the impact to all advertisers, not just small business and big business. But overall, this is, I'd say, in the history of Facebook ads, and I've been in it from day one, this, I would say, is the biggest abrupt change to the fabric of how the Facebook ads platform works, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this is probably, I think you're right. I think what has been going on for quite some time is that it's becoming a black box. Like from every angle that you look at it, it's becoming more and more vague what is actually happening behind the curtains. And as long as that is working, and as long as the reported numbers are great in your ads manager and in your backend systems, then people are fine with like a black box and not knowing what happens exactly. But when these numbers are not so great anymore, then people don't trust learning phases, see budget optimization tactics, lookalikes. Like when it stops working, and then people don't trust this whole system anymore, and that's the biggest concern to them, of course. So I feel that this is indeed one of the biggest changes over time. I've seen Facebook simplify their interfaces, and like a lot of stuff that they had has been removed. Like my whole business is built upon providing information that's still available through Facebook's developer APIs, but that's removed from Ads Manager. That's like what my whole software suite is built around. but for that, I could still imagine that they want to simplify it because they want the whole world to be able to create an ad, and that's a good thing. But now the simplification becomes like all kinds of weird names for estimations of statistics. That doesn't help us, at least not when it doesn't convert into sales. And the moment that people start to realize like, hey, my ads don't work, which is something all advertisers have at some point, then I don't think that people will say, oh, I'll just give my budget to Facebook and they'll just manage it.
Well,
They'll just find the audience and they'll just everything. I can just leave it to Facebook. If I just put in some money, then it will work. And I think that belief is going away.
Well, and speaking of trust in advertisers and audiences, I haven't trusted using automatic placement for a long time. And that's because when I've been using automatic placements for clients, Facebook is heavy loading the budget into the audience network.
Audience network, yeah.
And those clicks that are coming through from people playing Scrabble and then having to click through a video to get to their next Scrabble game, they're not converting. They're not producing results.
That's a good thing. Audience network will go away because that's a good thing because that completely relies on third-party websites and third-party pixels. So that's a goner.
Exactly. But with that, I haven't trusted Facebook's automatic placements for a very, very long time. But now the recommendations with this is that we're going to need to start broadening out our audiences. So instead of having these hyper-focused, hyper-targeted audiences based on lookalikes or website conversions, we're going to have to start taking that step back and increasing the widening of our audiences. And they're also recommending to rely on those automatic placements. And I'm just going, I'm not ready yet. I'm still traumatized from all the clients that have had bad clicks come from there. So we'll have to see how this plays out. And it's all, I mean, in the end, it all comes down to testing. Oh, the other thing we didn't mention on yet is if you are using any of these, if you're using event tracking that falls outside of the designated 8, once we have the opportunity to choose those ad sets are going to be automatically paused. So if you have campaigns that you've been running, tried, tested, and true on a daily ad spend that are part of your entire funnel, those could be impacted. So it's going to be interesting to see how advertisers react to that. And I guess that brings me to the question, what can advertisers do to prepare for this?
Yeah, so I feel the most important thing is to really think about your business and think about the things that you advertise for. So I mentioned it before. You have to have an offer or at least a sales process or a lead generation process that fits within these 7 days. You can't have nifty retargeting sequences anymore because you're not sure if people are indeed in that audience still. So I feel that every business should go back and think, what am I going to use Facebook ads for? And that's like the first step. So if maybe you can use Facebook just to like drive more traffic to your blog because you know that a certain percentage of people will sign up. Maybe you can go straight for a lead campaign, but with conversion campaigns straight for a purchase for a more expensive product, I would really start thinking about your funnel and like creating micro conversions within that funnel and use Facebook for that purpose. That's one of the, I would say, most important things. Then obviously like study your audience, like know exactly who your audience is, perform your research, know who you're selling to. The days of like giving Facebook money and saying you'll find these people for me magically, like even if Facebook would be good at that, which I not fully supporting it, but even if that was the case, then the data they have available now will be limited, because if you have if you want to build a lookalike audiences from people within a certain custom audience, then one of the limitations that Facebook has is that you have to have at least 100 people in that custom audience from the same country. And if you don't have these people, and 100 is the bare minimum, and if you don't have these people, then they can't even build a lookalike audience for you. And even if you have them, but there's like 100 or 120 people, then what do you think the quality of like this audience would be? So people should go back to the drawing board and like really try to understand, who do you want to reach? What defines these people? What isolates them from other people? Are there segments within that audience that you don't want to reach, or are there segments that you want to reach, and they might even you might even want to spend more money to reach that audience. So it's like research. It's like plain marketing, understanding who your customer is. Then yeah, I feel there's no excuse for businesses not to do that.
And Facebook is also recommending that we go and verify our domains via Business Manager. And
Yeah,
that would be tied to all of these changes with the tracking of your top 8 events. That's going to be 8 events per domain.
yeah,
So that's that's something that they haven't been until this point. They haven't been recommending that everybody verify a domain. They were only recommending it to some advertisers, depending on, I don't know what their criteria is, but now they are saying step 1, go verify your domain.
yeah.
Step 2, do everything that Paco just said, which is looking at your strategy, looking at your audiences, looking at your events, and prioritizing that and matching that to a realistic sales cycle that can fall within that 7-day attribution window. So
Yeah, because we no longer like in this new situation. Also, the breakdown features will be removed, so you can't just like target the broad audience and then go back into analytics and find out based on the breakdown if it were men or women or like certain age ranges. That will be deleted because most of this information comes from outside of this app. So
no,
and yeah.
Facebook is saying that we will still have the breakdowns to look at demographics and placements and all of that information. We'll still have it available, but they will not be able to report on any of the breakdowns as it pertains to conversions. So if you want to know how many people, male versus female, added to cart or checked out or did that purchase, or what their age range is, or where the region where they reside, you're not going to be able to see any of that. So that's
Exactly. So
out of all this news, that was like the biggest knife. It's like, oh, but that's my superpowers, being able to look at the analytics, see the breakdowns, and adjust all of the targeting to manipulate it to the direction that we want, so that we're making sure the ads are reaching the right people and that the ad spend isn't just bleeding out on the wrong people. So without the visibility of those breakdowns, I'm having a breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's how a lot of people used the ad platform, and I mean that's also what Facebook recommended: having a bit broader audience and not having like a million ad sets for like male and female and certain age groups. But now I feel people are going to do that a lot more again because Facebook didn't enforce campaign budget optimization as they said they would.
True.
They still support ad set budget. So I feel many advertisers are going to move back to like the old ways of doing it, which was having a lot of ad sets with different interests, with different age groups. It's like completely against this whole idea of a learning phase that you would exit after 50 conversions, which most advertisers, at least small businesses, will never reach. So I've always been surprised by all these comments in Facebook groups where people say, I can just trust Facebook's AI. Facebook's AI is smarter than you, and then completely ignore the idea that every AI, every machine learning algorithm needs data to to crunch, and when you don't feed it data, then there's no result, at least not a good one.
With all this said, I also don't want to instill fear in any advertisers, especially small businesses and those who are just starting out. Most people who are just starting out, just getting your Facebook tracking pixel installed on your website is a huge win. And that should still absolutely be the starting point. You definitely still need your Facebook tracking pixel on your website so that we can track whatever data we're able to get our hands on right now. But for most small business advertisers, they've put their pixel on their site and they haven't even taken a step past that. They haven't put custom events on there. They haven't used any of their events. They haven't customized anything. Now, if you are using a third-party integration, something like Shopify, it does it for you. So it's automatically tracking those conversions. If you're putting your pixel on your own website, let's say a WordPress site, and you don't have any other further customization, this probably isn't going to impact you immediately as far as optimizing for conversions, tracking how many conversions you're getting. You're not going to notice any difference there. However, in the long run, from the for your audience perspective, you might see your audience sizes reduce, and then your audience's website audiences are basically just going to be flooded with Android users, which is not a bad thing, but it's only telling half the story, not giving you 100% visibility. So
I think also maybe it's so simple that it even sounds stupid, but something that I've been doing for the past 2 years, I would say, while running ads, was I don't trust Facebook's reporting system. I've always, I mean, there's always overlap, and the way if you look at 28-day with including a 1-day view conversion, then there's a lot of conversions that would also have happened without Facebook's interference. So what I always like to do, and I think especially for small businesses, that's smart to do, is just create a Google sheet and just have your, like, a date, the budget that you spent on ads, and just have your either your number of leads or your number of conversions, and with only one goal, and that's like correlating one column to another column. And if there's no correlation anymore, if there's no correlation between your sales going up or down and the budget that you spend on Facebook, then that's what you should use to draw conclusions. But not like, don't trust all this Facebook analytics stuff. And like right now, I wouldn't even trust it, but going forward, that will be worse.
Well, and that's always been the case. When we look at Facebook analytics, when we look at what Facebook is saying that we got for conversions or purchases or webinar signups, whatever we're tracking, it's never been an apples to apples, one-to-one comparison to what Google Analytics is saying or to what any other third-party tracker. And that's because they're not speaking the same language. Every platform kind of has their own language, so to speak. They value a click differently. So it's like trying to translate English into French or French into English or any other language. You might be saying the exact same thing, but you might have many more characters of letters in that to make up the words that go to say the exact same thing. So it's not an exact one-to-one translation. And so therefore the information is not being tracked accurately necessarily across all platforms. So exactly what Paco is saying, correlating your data and looking at the trends and watching for any major anomalies. And the other question I had was regarding UTM tracking on Facebook links. I have had some in this past year where I've been testing. I have had some where I have UTM tracking on my links and it just doesn't report. But I think that was an anomaly. But I still see the value for small businesses specifically to be using, when you're using links that you're putting into your Facebook ads, to use Google UTM tracking to help give you additional visibility in your Google Analytics as to how well those ads are performing, how much traffic you're getting to your site from those ads, how people are behaving on your site when they get there. So how much time are they spending on page? How many pages per session are they looking at? Are they a new user, a returning user, et cetera? So combining the superpowers of Facebook's tracking and Google Analytics tracking, and then just having visibility and paying attention to it. I think for advertisers or small businesses who have always shied away from looking at your analytics because you just don't understand it, I think those days are gone. If you're going to spend money on these platforms, you need to start understanding how to read the reports.
Yeah, exactly. And also when you're doing kind of like things like A/B tests. So when you're like showing a different landing page to a different segment, then like understanding that what happens because of all these cookie restrictions, that after 7 days, someone can be in both the A group and in the B group. So because it's a new visitor. So when you're doing tests or when you're doing analytics, then like keep in the back of your head that this is happening, and like you can't compare stats from a year ago to today's stats, because you can just simply look up your Safari share in your total traffic, and you will see that your Safari has a growing number of new visitors. And that's just simply because of this. In Firefox, it's the same. This is not a Safari only problem. In Firefox has the same restrictions. They call it enhanced tracking protection. It's exactly the same. And in Google Chrome, when you're using a new version of Chrome and you open an incognito tab, you can already see a checkbox that says, I want to block third-party tracking. In the development version of Chrome, it's called Canary, there it's already a default. So like it's a matter of time before all these. So going back to these recommendations, so what can you do? Like you can't expect Facebook to fix this, because there have been many ways to work around this. They've tried them. There's also a bunch of third-party software solutions that I've even recommended myself that were also circumventing all the changes that were happening. And now I came to the realization that it will always be this game of whack-a-mole, closing one hole and then there's a new one, and then closing that one again and then there's a new one. So like over time, businesses will give up on this business model, because it's not a durable business if you constantly have to fix things and trying to hack around the system.
And we haven't even
And with,
begun to
yeah,
touch on ad rejections and ad account restrictions and business manager restrictions and bans on advertisers. That's
yeah.
completely
For
doubled.
that, these domain verifications that you mentioned earlier, like that was, of course, now that it serves a different purpose also, but it has always been important to verify as much information as you can within the Facebook platform, because like I know from experience, I have had a lot of banned accounts. I've also gotten some of them back. I've been advertising from my girlfriend or neighbors accounts. Like I've even bought illegal accounts from Mexico. I've done the whole black hat, white hat, everything. But like in the end, this will happen to everyone. So that's it's also weird, but I've gone the full spectrum, and now I'm advertising mostly from one of my own accounts again, but still having all these weird backup solutions in place.
And
And
that's the thing.
that's a whole different topic, of course.
As a Facebook advertiser, I really feel like we need like Facebook ads therapy from everything that we've been put through, from the ad account rejections, from having to make backups and workarounds and additional pixels and have those running in tandem with your existing pixels and other alternate ad accounts and alternate logins in case you get it. Oh, and it's not,
Never a
and
dull
we're not,
day.
we are legitimate advertisers. We are not
Yeah.
breaching Facebook's ads policies or their community guidelines, nothing. We are legitimate advertisers, and we have to jump through hoops to make sure that we can still operate and advertise on behalf of our own products or behalf of clients. And that's been it's been a stressful little while with Facebook. I'm not going to lie.
It has been
There is
definitely.
some icing on the cake with the iOS updates, but you know what? As with anything, we adapt, and the people and the advertisers who can adapt most quickly to this are the ones that are going to stay ahead of everybody else and be successful, because the fact of the matter is Facebook's ads platform is not going away anytime soon, and it really is still a massive contender for the lowest cost for enough value that you can get out of it. So as frustrating as it might be, it's still a cheaper solution that can still pull results for you compared to almost all of the other social media platforms right now.
Yeah, exactly. And people just have to like think about what's within their influence. So this is, of course, I've written some articles about this whole iOS thing as well, and it feels like sort of gloom and doom, and everything is coming to an end. But that's of course not true. And there have been many changes that have impacted advertising and tracking and stuff. And every time, like people found a new solution. So I'm confident that that will be the same now. But I still think people can't neglect like the basics. So just research, having a strong offer, having a good backend funnel where like you can increase the value of your order faster than Facebook CPM increases. And like that's like business practice. That has nothing to do with Facebook, but it's just being a solid and profitable business.
And
And
I
then you run ads.
And I would add on top of that, just what we mentioned, understanding how to read your analytics, whether that's
Yeah.
Facebook analytics, Google analytics, your Shopify results and stats. It doesn't matter. Just paying more close attention to the data and the quality of your excuse me, the quality of your audiences.
Yeah.
So wow, we covered a lot. and we honestly are only scratching the surface on this, and we are giving it to everybody that's watching this in as plain terms as we possibly can, without just slamming everybody and overwhelming you with what this actually means on the back end for how everything is functioning. So with that said, Paco, thank you for honestly, thank you for doing this, because I know when I first emailed you about this, you do have a fantastic gatekeeper who basically turned me down flat out, said, nope, we don't do this. Wish you all the best of luck. And I was like, what? Oh no. So I'm really glad that you came through with this and were able to join me on video here.
Yeah, she has been very effective at keeping my calendar clean.
She's doing a great job, but thank you for doing this. So Paco, tell us, where can people find you?
People can find me, or at least subscribe to my newsletter through InterestExplorer.io. That's the Facebook software that I sell. That's my main product. And I have a newsletter. I send out regular emails when changes or the market dictates. And I don't send that many newsletters, but I only send something when I have something meaningful
And
to share.
And honestly, pardon me, those newsletters are very robust. And you have such a talent for being able to break down really complex terms and make it easy to understand, and being able to bring a lot of context to the conversation on what's happening. You're not just regurgitating news that everyone else is talking about. You're putting some real actionable insights in behind that. So your newsletter is actually one of my favorites that I see come in. Every time I see it come in, I'm like, oh no, what's happening now, Facebook? Let's crack this puppy open. So yes, I highly recommend, if you're not already a subscriber to Paco's newsletter, you're gonna want to. So thank you so
Thanks.
much for joining me. I really appreciate this. Everyone who's watching this, if you want to learn more about Facebook ads, I highly encourage you to check out the Facebook ads 4-week bootcamp. I teach you Facebook ads from the ground up. So how to use Facebook's ads manager in week 1, week 2, how to do your audiences and targeting. And I show you how to use InterestExplorer as well. Week 3, budgets and strategy, which is radically going to be changing with all of these iOS updates. And week 4, how to understand your reporting and optimizing, which is also going to be quite critical for this process. So if you need to learn Facebook ads from the ground up, check it all out at swiftkickintheads.com. I am Amanda Robinson. I am the digital gal. And thank you everyone for geeking out with us. Thanks, Paco. And we'll catch you again soon.
Thanks.